Will Span's life shatter when his wife, Lisa, vanishes without a trace. Desperate and armed with nothing but sheer will, he plunges into the dark underworld of a ruthless crime ring.
Where is she? Tell me where she is.
As he hunts for answers, he confronts deadly adversaries, corrupt allies, and a brutal crime boss hiding dark secrets. With every step, the stakes rise, and Will's message grows clear. He will burn their world down if it means bringing Lisa back. Today we will be recapping a 2022 movie named Last Seen Alive. Detective Roy Patterson was sitting in a car, deeply focused on questioning a man. His mission was clear: find out where a missing woman was. The woman had been taken in broad daylight, and Detective Roy was determined to uncover her whereabouts. After some intense questioning, the man finally confessed with a chilling revelation: the woman was already dead. The story rewinds to 8 hours earlier, introducing us to a couple, Will and Lisa Span. They were on their way to Lisa's parents' house, but the atmosphere in the car was tense. They had decided to take a break from their marriage due to Lisa's recent affair and her growing dissatisfaction. Will, who wasn't ready to let go, tried to delay their arrival by stopping at a gas station. He suggested that Lisa should consider going on a vacation or returning home instead of visiting her parents. However, Lisa was firm in her decision, needing time apart to reflect on their relationship and her feelings. While Will was busy filling up the car, Lisa went into the convenience store. In the restroom, she received a message from Clint, the man she had an affair with, but she chose to ignore it. After buying a bottle of water, she was about to leave when someone called her name, catching her attention. Meanwhile, Will was still focused on the gas pump, and a large truck blocked his view. When the truck finally moved, both Lisa and the mysterious person were gone. After finishing at the pump, Will waited for Lisa to return, but as time passed, he grew worried. He checked the store and the restroom, but there was no sign of her. He asked the cashier if he had seen Lisa, but strangely, the cashier claimed he hadn't seen anyone like her, even though he had served her earlier. Feeling anxious, Will stepped outside and called Lisa's phone, but it went straight to voicemail. He called out her name and searched the gas station, but she was nowhere to be found. Eventually, Will decided to call the police to report Lisa missing. He spoke with Detective Roy Patterson, who assured him that an officer would be sent or that he might come himself. Roy instructed Will to stay at the gas station. However, overwhelmed by fear and panic, Will chose to drive to Lisa's parents' house instead. When he arrived, he found Anna and Barry Adams, Lisa's parents, who were confused because they expected Lisa to come with him. Will explained the situation and told them to stay put in case Lisa returned. He also suggested they contact her friends to see if she might be with any of them. After Will left, Barry became suspicious of Will's strange behavior and quickly called the police. Will returned to the gas station and had a flashback to when Lisa first suggested taking a break. This memory frustrated him, recalling their heated argument about their marriage. Will accused Lisa of being unhappy, while Lisa admitted she didn't feel anything for him anymore, though she didn't understand why. Back in the present, Will got out of his car to meet Detective Roy, who had finally arrived. Will explained that it had been about an hour and a half since Lisa disappeared, and her parents were also worried. The two men went inside the store to ask the cashier, Oscar, to show them the security footage. Oscar claimed that the cameras had been broken for 2 weeks, which frustrated Roy. He decided to prepare an Amber Alert for Lisa. He took Lisa's bag and computer, instructed Will to stay at the gas station, and drove away. While looking around, Will noticed that an external security camera was still recording. He rushed back into the store, demanding that Oscar give him the tapes. After a struggle, Oscar finally revealed where the recordings were kept. Will took the entire machine and drove to the police station, where he handed over the footage to Detective Roy. The IT department analyzed the video and discovered that Lisa was seen talking to an unknown man. She seemed to recognize him and followed him to his car, where he opened the door for her. It looked like Lisa was getting into his car just as the view was blocked by the large truck, and when it moved, both Lisa and the car were gone. Will managed to take a picture of the man's car before Detective Roy asked him to go to another room for questioning. Detective Roy started with simple questions, but soon shifted to asking about Will and Lisa's marital problems. Frustrated, Will insisted that Detective Roy should focus on finding Lisa instead of asking irrelevant questions. However, Roy explained that he could not ignore the possibility that Will might be involved in her disappearance. He even questioned whether Will's successful career as a property developer could have made him enemies who might want to harm his wife. Growing more irritated with Detective Roy's questions, Will left and headed back to Lisa's parents' house. He showed them a photo of the unfamiliar man and his vehicle. To his surprise, Anna and Barry recognized him as Knuckles, a handyman they occasionally hired who was also a childhood friend of Lisa's. Anna remembered seeing him at a place she called Morrison's. With this new information, Will drove to Morrison's. misleading Detective Roy over the phone by saying he was just driving around town. When his GPS indicated he had arrived, Will got out of his car, grabbed a crowbar, and walked through the woods toward a wooden fence. Peering through a crack, he spotted the car he had been searching for and sneaked onto the property, where he saw Knuckles hurriedly packing up. Will quietly entered Knuckles' trailer, holding the crowbar, and demanded to know where Lisa was. When Knuckles refused to answer, Will became aggressive and hit him until he finally admitted that he left Lisa with a man named Frank. Knuckles promised to take Will to Frank's place if he stopped the beating. In a moment of desperation, Will grabbed a gun from the trailer and used duct tape to bind and gag Knuckles. He then forced him into the trunk of his car and drove toward the location Knuckles had identified. As Will raced towards the location, a police officer suddenly pulled him over for speeding. Panicking, Will told Knuckles to stay quiet in the trunk while trying to remain calm. Things escalated quickly when the officer asked him to step out of the car and open the trunk. In a split second of fear, Will decided to make a run for it, dashing into the nearby woods and managing to escape before the officer could catch up. Meanwhile, Detective Roy returned to the gas station, hoping to track down Oscar. He was disappointed to find that the shift had changed and a new cashier was now behind the counter. Not giving up, Roy went to Lisa's parents' house to inquire about Clint, the man Lisa had been involved with. Lisa's mother, Anna, assured him that Lisa had stopped seeing Clint. Roy explained that Clint had sent her 3 emails recently, pleading for her to meet him, but she had not responded. Unfortunately, investigating Clint didn't lead to anything useful. When Lisa's father, Barry, insisted that more be done to find his daughter, Roy explained that there was no hard evidence of a crime based on their current findings. Back in the woods, Will managed to avoid capture and chose to continue on foot toward Frank's compound. As he walked, he heard gunfire in the distance. Following the noise, he came across a small paved road and an ATV. As he attempted to start it, a large man appeared, demanding to know who he was. Will quickly claimed to be there on business with Frank, stating that he knew him through Knuckles. Though skeptical, the man let Will pass when Frank didn't respond to his radio calls. Upon reaching Frank's compound, Will discovered a large area filled with drug addicts and dealers busy cooking drugs. Moving cautiously through the compound, he kept searching for Frank. Eventually, he spotted Frank giving orders to his men. Stealthily, Will made his way to a garage where he was caught by a man sitting in a car. Will quickly knocked him out and was shocked to see Oscar, realizing that Oscar was involved with Frank's operation. Taking the shotgun from the unconscious man, Will moved toward Oscar. Continuing his search, Will found himself in a barn that appeared to be the center of the drug operation. He accidentally ran into a worker but quickly subdued him. Will then made his way to the main room filled with barrels of dangerous chemicals. Seizing the opportunity, he burst into the room, gun aimed at Frank and his henchman Larry. He demanded to know where Lisa was, but Frank feigned ignorance. Growing more impatient, Will told Larry to open a container, fearing Lisa might be inside. Just as Larry opened the doors, Frank unexpectedly fired his gun. Will fought back, killing Larry, and a wild shootout ensued, with Frank hiding behind barrels, dodging bullets in a deadly game of cat and mouse. When Frank fired again, Will shot him, gravely wounding him. However, this left Will without any further clues about Lisa's whereabouts. As he exited the barn, he didn't notice the gunfight had sparked a fire near a pool of chemicals. After driving off the remaining addicts, Will saw Oscar emerging from the barn. They pointed their guns at each other, but Oscar insisted he wasn't involved in Lisa's abduction. An uneasy truce was formed as they lowered their weapons. Oscar revealed he knew where Lisa was, but demanded a hefty payment of $220,000 for the information. Will was hesitant, but when Oscar showed him Lisa's phone as proof, he reluctantly agreed to the deal. Just as they argued over the payment, the barn erupted in a massive explosion, ignited by the earlier flames. Back at the police station, Detective Roy was informed about the officer who had stopped Will's car. The police quickly set up a perimeter around the area. Shortly after, Roy arrived at the crime scene, where Knuckles was being held in the back of a patrol car. In a tense confrontation, Detective Roy interrogated Knuckles about Lisa's kidnapping. Knuckles recalled how he cornered Lisa at the gas station, pulled a knife on her, and forced her into his car. But when Roy confronted him, Knuckles denied everything, trying to act tough. Roy, undeterred, got closer and threatened him with a life sentence if he didn't cooperate. Eventually, Knuckles cracked and admitted that Lisa was dead. Knuckles confessed that he had informed Frank about Lisa's plans to return home, suggesting they could kidnap her for ransom, knowing Will was wealthy. That day, Knuckles had unexpectedly run into Lisa at the gas station and decided to follow through with the plan, taking her to Frank's compound. After hearing Knuckles' story, Detective Roy and the police rushed to Frank's compound, quickly extinguishing the fire and arresting Frank's men. Will, shaken from the explosion and covered in dirt, sat by a police car as Detective Roy approached. Will stood up to greet Roy, asking if he was being arrested for kidnapping Knuckles. Roy simply told him to stay put. As Roy walked around the back of one of the buildings, he found a shallow pit covered with metal. Roy lifted the metal, but found the pit empty. As Will moved through the compound, he heard faint voices in the distance. He followed the sounds until he came upon a small, isolated shack. Inside, he found Lisa, trapped and desperate. After quickly unlocking the door, he helped her out and she spoke with urgency, her voice weak. "Take me home." Without a second thought, Will scooped her into his arms and hurried away from the danger, determined to get her to safety. Once they arrived at Lisa's parents' home, Will stood in the driveway as Detective Roy approached to wrap up his investigation. Roy briefly mentioned he was aware of the shooting at the compound, but had chosen not to press charges against Will. The scene closed with Lisa gently taking Will's hand, guiding him inside, signaling that their much-needed break was no longer a priority. Together, they were moving forward. And with that, the movie ends. We hope you enjoyed our video. Watch the next recaps on the screen and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing recaps. See you in the next one.